Okay, so we're live now, and let's just wait a few minutes to see um, a few more people join before we actually start the session.
Okay.
Yeah. In the meantime, I'm going to just read a little disclaimer we have here at the start of each talk. So I want to just state that the opinions expressed by the webinar speakers are their own and not necessarily those of the board of the American Concrete Institute Malaysia chapter. So the webinar may include case studies or advertisements of suppliers who have, in one way or other, contributed to the development of this webinar. The American Concrete Institute Malaysia chapter does not endorse the products included in the case studies and the advertisements. It is the responsibility of the viewers to select appropriate products to ensure they meet their specific requirements. So that was just to make clear that we have the speakers on board and they're guest speakers, but we're in no way endorsing one particular product or another to maintain our neutrality. And I see we already have about 7 people who have joined in, so that's it's starting to rise quite quickly now. Martin David, who is the president of ACI Malaysia chapter, has just said good evening. Good evening, Martin. Thanks for joining this session. And thanks for supporting all the webinars that we've run so far. I think you've been here for each and every one of them. So I think, let's see, what is the time? Let's wait a few more minutes and then I'll launch into an introduction.
Okay.
We're still at about 8 viewers, so a little while more.
No problem. No problem at all. How often do you have these? Once every month? Once every 2 months?
So these webinars that cover a particular topic we have once every month, and then from time to time we have special series that also happen alongside these. So then some months have 2 webinars. It depends. Yeah, but we make sure to have at least one a month.
Wonderful, wonderful. It's a very active society. My congrats to you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think we've been doing quite well this year, despite everything having to be online.
Yes.
So it's been a bit of a challenge to move things online because it's always nicer to have events in person. But yeah, we've been getting quite good response from the webinars, so we've continued to do it, and really interesting to have lots of different speakers as well. So I think you're going to be talking about your bitumen regenerator here, but in the past we've had people talk about turning waste into concrete material, construction materials, people talking about demolition. So lots of different aspects of concrete and construction that we cover for months.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah. So now we're up to 12 viewers, which is great. Just about 4 minutes in. So maybe I'll start by explaining. This is part of a monthly webinar series that ACI Malaysia chapter organizes. And if anyone is interested in following what series we have coming up, then you can also follow us on Facebook, and you can also visit our website, which is acimalaysia.org. And we will post updates there. We also have a lot of written content up on our website if you're interested in reading more about different aspects of concrete and construction. This is more specifically in the Malaysian context, I guess, but should be applicable and informative for anyone from anywhere. Today, we're actually really honored to have Krishna with us, and I'll just give a quick little introduction to Krishna and his talk today before I hand it over to Krishna to continue and share more about it with us. So Krishna is the president and the founder of SRIPAK Technologies in New Jersey, USA. And he established this in 2006 and has more than 25 years of hands-on experience in the bitumen industry. So he received his PhD from the Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in Troy, New York, USA. And he's also a paving and roofing technology expert with a strong record of delivering cutting-edge innovative portfolio of additives to enhance the performance of bitumen. So today's talk will cover how SRIPAK Technologies designed, developed, and commercialized an innovative bitumen rejuvenator, the science and technology behind the bitumen rejuvenator, how the rejuvenator is incorporates high levels of REP into a mix, and it will also highlight how the bitumen rejuvenator is environmentally sustainable, delivers excellent roadway performance, and helps reduce the cost of the mix as well. So we're really happy to have Mr. Krishna join us all the way from the USA, despite the 12-hour time difference. We have about 14 viewers on, so I think we can still take some time to wait a little longer, and maybe another 2 minutes or so to see if a few more people will be joining, and then we can start. How does that sound?
Terrific.
Okay, great. But in the meantime, maybe you could share a little bit more about your journey with bitumen with us, like how you got started in the industry, and what it's been like.
Thank you so much, and really thank you, Dr. Shobana. Yeah, let me tell you a little bit about myself and the journey that brings us all here. I'm an old asphalt or bitumen hand, and the common expression we, at least in the USA, use is "I got tar under my fingernails." Been in this industry for about maybe a better part of maybe 30 years now. As Dr. Shobana mentioned, we started off in 2006 trying to bring innovative products. We recognized some of the problems facing the bitumen industry. We service both the roofing and the paving markets. I know there is probably a little tradition of building envelope in bituminous building envelope solutions in Malaysia. So it is mostly paving, but in many parts of the world, roofing is as important a segment for bitumen use as is paving. So we had a chance firsthand to observe some of the problems facing the paving industry and the roofing industry in bitumen usage. And we really set about to create a company and a range of products that was not me too. We wanted innovative solutions that are useful, that are readily deployable, they are user-friendly, they deliver outstanding performance. So we are really technically driven, and that was our roots. And we have been fortunate, more fortunate than many people in terms of having our products recognized worldwide. And I'll talk about a little bit when we get into the presentation. But Rejuvenator that Dr. Shobana mentioned, Relicser, was one of our first products, a flagship product for us, one that finds great use throughout the world. And again, I'll talk a little bit more about it. And so we are really very happy to be able to. Deepak Madan is in the audience today. He is our Chief Marketing Officer. He and I are really, really excited to be able to bring some of these technologies to the attention of folks at the Malaysia chapter of ACI.
Thank you. Yeah, so we're definitely really excited to hear about this because we haven't had a speaker on bitumen before. So I think with that, we can actually launch into the actual webinar. I'm just going to share your screen here. So you can take it away from here, Krishna. I will leave the room and hand it over to you fully now.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Shobana. Thank you so much to you for helping guide us through the process. Thank you to Melissa Lim for helping organize this session, and to Dr. Martin for really introducing us into this Malaysian chapter of ACI. Thank you to all of you. Welcome to all of you. Good evening. Hope you're doing well wherever you are in the world. Hope you're all safe from the effects of the pandemic. And I today, as Dr. Shobana indicated, I'd like to talk about rejuvenation in high wrap mixes. And so let me start by saying RAP stands for Reclaimed Asphalt Pavement. Whenever you do repairs on a roadway, whenever you tear it up either across the entire full depth, 8 inches, maybe 150 millimeters to you in Malaysia, or even the top 2 inches of the wear layer course, you generate what is known as RAP, Reclaimed Asphalt Pavement. That debris that you generate is called RAP. And just for information for this group, RAP is the most recycled material in the world. It is not waste plastics. It is not crushed glass. It is RAP. And if I tell you, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, the amount of RAP that is being recycled dwarfs everything else by a factor of maybe 5 or 10. So we'll talk about that today. What is a RAP? What is a high RAP mix? How do you use it? What is rejuvenation? How do you select a good rejuvenator, and how you design a mix with rejuvenator, and are there any limits on the amount of RAP that you can incorporate in your mix? What is the cost implication of doing all of this, rejuvenation, high RAP, etc.? And most importantly, what is the impact of using high RAP mixes on roadway performance? Both instantaneously as soon as you put it down, as well as long term. And then finally, for those of us in the audience who are plant engineers and plant managers, you've heard about the benefits, you've tried it in your lab. How do you now incorporate this in a plant setting? And what are some of the important traits about rejuvenators that you may want to take away from today's webinar? By the way, Dr. Shobana will collect questions at the end of the presentation and forward them to me for answering. However, if there is something on a slide that is not clear, that needs a little bit more explanation, or you can't hear me, can't see me, etc., please let Dr. Shobana know immediately, and we'll be happy to take questions anytime. We will be available afterwards as well. If you wish to email us or contact us, Dr. Shobana has all our contact information about Relicser, the product, or about SRIPAK Technologies' other products. This is kind of the outline. I will talk a little bit about who we are, SRIPAK, what we do, and then move on into general benefits of recycling. What are some relevant market information that we have been able to gather about roadways in Malaysia, and then step into the science and the technology behind how do you use RAP? How do you select a good ideal rejuvenator? What is the impact on roadway performance? And like I said, if having done all of that, how to test it and deploy it in a plant environment. And I'll end up with some closing remarks. So very briefly, SRIPAK Technologies, as I was explaining to Dr. Shobana, is an innovative little think tank. We develop, manufacture, and market really innovative, cutting-edge type additives that help solve industry-wide bitumen problems. These could be rejuvenators, these could be oils. We market anti-strip agents, polymers, And in general, they all are used to either solve a problem, enhance the performance of the bitumen for a particular type of application. Really, we are a industry-wide team of veterans. Many of us have had over 25, 30 years of experience in this field. Our focus is on environmentally friendly solutions, sustainable products, and such applications. And all these products are highly specially formulated and engineered. We are a global company providing outstanding support, technical support, customer support. This slide quickly outlines we are headquartered in North America, but we do have affiliates in Europe, in Asia Pac, and Malaysia would probably fall under the Asia Pacific sphere of influence. Certainly South America and Africa. And we do have manufacturing on 4 continents. One of the traits, the R&D trait, is very unique to us. No matter where we go in the world, we always seek out local experts, local professors, local engineers or consultants who really know the industry inside out. We give them our products to test. They test it using local materials, using local test techniques, and compare them to local specifications. And what this does is it builds a level of trust. We, as this chart outlines, we have worked with professors or consultants in very many countries around the globe, from Australia through Asia and Europe, South Africa, and indeed the Americas, both the North and the South. And as a consequence, our products are listed or approved or vetted or trusted by leading regulatory authorities, Department of Transportation people, professors, academia, etc., etc. And it really builds a level of trust that we want to engender. We want to be here to solve your problems today. We want to be here to solve your problems tomorrow as well. That has been our approach. So with that brief introduction about SRIPAK, by the way, please, more questions, you can email us or visit our website, www.sripak.com. You'll find a lot of technical resources there that could educate you a little bit more about some of the products we're talking about. Let me start with the whole concept of sustainability. Many of you have seen charts or pictures like this: reduce, reuse, conserve. So the 3 legs of the triangle, or the 3 circles, if you will, in the case of pavements, is first, use recycled materials. I'll speak extensively about RAP, reclaimed asphalt pavement. Also used to some extent are recycled tire materials, and particularly as a filler, some recycled concrete type material. That's in recycled materials. In the production and construction is where you would like to reduce emissions, you'd like to reduce the energy used to make a pavement. There are a couple of technologies. Warm mix bitumen is one of them. Cold mixes, emulsions are another technology. And certainly the most important one of them is reduce the burden on the planet, reduce extraction of virgin materials, reduce creation of virgin materials. And we'll talk about that today. Finally, there is this improved service life. Not only do you want to put down a pavement, but you don't want to keep digging it up often or repeatedly. And so you look towards mechanistic techniques, mechanistic design techniques to complete the 3rd leg of the circle, which is use modified bitumens that have been engineered for specific applications particular to your country, your traffic condition, your climate, your use patterns, etc. And use more advanced concepts in grading or testing for QC purposes, the incoming bitumen, or even the balanced mix design. So just for the purposes of clarification, I will talk about 2 concepts today. One is bitumen, the liquid, the black tar, and the other is mix, which consists of bitumen plus rock plus other additives that is used to put down on the pavement, is compacted by the road roller, and that product is called the mix. So you have neat bitumen or binder, and you have mix, which is bitumen plus stone plus everything else. It is often acknowledged that as the global population grows, one of the key facilitators for economic development is increasing the roadway network. Certainly increasing communications like we're doing today via the internet, via Facebook, via Google, via Teams or Zoom or anything like that is very good. But for an economy to function well, you need not only ideas, but physical movement of men and materials, of men, women, children, and materials. And so the Roadwork Network is a very key facilitator and often a key indicator of economic growth. What happens is typically roadways deteriorate over time. Everybody is aware of this. And so the industry at large over the world is digging up old roads, trying to refurbish them. And in the process, they're creating mountains and mountains and mountains of RAP. As I mentioned to you, there's over 750 million tons of RAP generated every year worldwide. Only a fifth of it, even though it is the most largest recycled material on the planet, only about 110, 120 million of that is being reused in pavements. And that too, I may add, historically has been as a low value add filler. You're just looking for a cheap filler material, and the RAP is being recycled in many parts of the world in low levels, maybe 10, 15, 20%. And the rest ships to landfills, mountains of which grow every year. And this has a consequence. The industry, in order to create fresh roads, create new roadway structures, keeps mining the earth for more crude oil to be able to make the bitumen, keeps mining mountains to crush them and create more stones or aggregate. And so this has an impact on the global carbon footprint, if you will. This is a chart that comes to us courtesy of the FHWA, the Federal Highway Administration in Washington, D.C. And they did an analysis and looked at the overall cost of putting down a roadway. And it turns out that materials are about 70% of the total cost. Plant production is a little bit, trucking the material to the job site and putting it down, laying it down are all small bits. So anything you can do to reduce the cost structure here has a dramatic impact on the final cost of your roadway. And this is where bitumen from RAP, if you don't treat RAP, reclaimed asphalt pavement, as a cheap filler, if you recognize that it has got valuable raw materials embedded into it, and maybe you can use some of that through some proper conditioning techniques, proper rejuvenation techniques, you can use that bitumen. Not only are you saving the planet, but you're also helping lower the cost of your mix. And we'll talk about specific examples about that. So this is the environmental case for greater RAP usage. You have a new roadway over time, after driving, climate conditions, traffic conditions, you have some damage. At some point, the roadway engineer says, we've got to replace this roadway. We've got to expand the roadway, make it from 2 lanes to 4 lanes or something like that. So you dig up that roadway, you generate reclaimed asphalt pavement. You then add some Rejuvenator to it to be able to create a mix that comes back as the new roadway. You're reducing the energy and transportation costs. You're reducing sourcing of virgin materials. And you're reducing the amount of construction debris that is destined for the landfills. So let me take a moment here, and we do this webinar, by the way, for various people around the globe. So we've been fortunate to get some data here and there. It's incomplete by your standards. This is data, I believe, accurate as of 2019. And this lays out the total roadway network. Certainly this comes as no new news to you viewers in Malaysia. But the number that struck me out of all of this was the amount of unpaved roadway. As a percentage, you're only at about 12%. If you look at some of your neighboring countries like India, like Thailand, even South Korea, etc., that number is much higher. If you even look at advanced nations, what is considered advanced nations by roadway structure estimates, like Europe or USA, that number is probably higher than 40%. So Malaysia, I believe, is at least on the right track. You have recognized the value of building out a roadway network structure, and to the extent possible, you're trying to pave it over with paved type of roadways rather than unpaved. This is a quick chart, export-import data. And again, if you look at the exports Malaysia versus imports Malaysia of bitumen, the balance of trade is clearly in your favor. You're exporting much more bitumen than you're importing. And we'll talk today about how it is that you can reuse more of the existing bitumen network in your network, roadway network, and thereby increase this number. So our talk today may have some beneficial impact on the balance of trade figures for Malaysia. Overall bitumen production to the total amount that we were able to determine, Deepak and I were able to determine, is about 155 to about 170 metric tons per year. So with that, let's move on to the meat of the presentation. How do you use? You've generated this. How do you use it? And again, the sequence of steps is fairly familiar. It follows the very traditional scientific method, which is you first generate the wrap, you prepare the wrap for adequate use, you test it exhaustively, and I'll talk about this. You should, if you're planning to use high wrap content in your mixes, you should treat it with the same care and reverence that any input material deserves, which is you thoroughly characterize it, you know the quality that you're dealing with. And then you move into mix design, how to create a mix design. We'll talk about that. How do you test such a mix design? And finally, you've done all of that. Now you want to make maybe 150 tons, 200 tons, something like that. Put it down on a roadway. Try to assess performance. How do you incorporate it into a mix plant? So there are many different sources of wrap, as I mentioned. Whenever you try to recover an old roadway, the first step you do is either mill the top 2 inches, 50 millimeter, or you get an earth excavator. You tell yourself the roadway is pretty much damaged. You need to go across the full depth, which is about 8 inches or 150 millimeters. You excavate it. And finally, plant also generates some waste material during production. All of these are sources of wrap or reclaimed asphalt pavement. Oops, sorry. And right away, as it comes through, you can see there's a wide variability in particle sizes. So the first step we need to do is to be able to get material that is more consistent. And this talks about processing and quality control. So here are some of the steps. You have the screening. By the way, all these are mobile equipment. They are typically available on the job site. You don't need specialized equipment or plant setup to be able to do any of these steps. It's a fairly traditional industry that has all these kinds of equipment available very readily across much of Asia. And indeed, we've been doing this in many different countries in Asia. So I'm fairly certain also available in Malaysia. The first step is screening. You want to remove, you've generated some roadway debris. It's got some wrap, it's got some other stuff in it, it's got all kinds of waste and junk in it. The first step is screen it out, make sure that you get good quality material that you can now proceed for crushing. If you will recall in the previous slide, you had a wide variety of particle sizes. Your goal in this step is to break them down and to create particle sizes that are more acceptable for your plant, for processing in a plant. So having done that, you now have gotten a certain particle size gradation here, and you are now ready to what's known as fractionate. Fractionation is simply separation of this material, the crushed material, into various sizes as shown here: coarse, medium, and fine. And the goal is to create mountains. Again, this is an equipment that has got 3 or 4 different arms. You feed the material in, and it separates simply based on size. And so you're able to generate these piles, the coarse pile, the medium pile, and the fine pile. And we'll talk about it. Some people just do coarse and fine. Some people work with just one set of materials, and it has implications in your design. I'll talk about it. Now that you've created these mountains, the next step, remember, is one of the key things in quality control is you want a consistent material. So take this pile that you've created from, let's say, your coarse pile, use an earth mover, and simply turn it over once or twice. So now you know that each pile is fairly consistent. If you draw material from the top, the bottom, any of the sides, it will have roughly similar properties. And this is called homogenizing your pile. So let's talk a little bit about this wrap material. This wrap material typically contains 2 main components. One is aggregate or stone, and the other is binder or bitumen. The aggregate typically does not change with age. Its quality is if it was good for the roadway when it was laid down 5, 7 years, 8 years ago, its frictional properties, its particle size, etc., is probably good enough to be used today. And in vast majority, over 99+% of the case, that is true. The aggregate does not really change. What changes is the glue that's holding all this aggregate together, what we call bitumen or binder. And it is these binders that are organic materials. They age with time because of the effect of moisture and rains and sunlight and cold weather, etc., etc. They become more stiff. They become more brittle. And so in order to be able to utilize the full value, if you're not using it simply as a filler, you now want to extract the full value of the bitumen or the binder in the wrap, you need to add a rejuvenator. And the trick really is to find the right rejuvenator that works for you. So I spoke about bitumen aging in the field. How does one measure it? How does one know the bitumen is aged? And here I'm highlighting penetration. Penetration is a test technique that's used to measure quality of bitumen. No matter where you go in the world, penetration is, there may be different methods of characterizing them, but penetration is a 50, 75-year-old method that everybody around the world recognizes, which is why I picked this slide, courtesy of the University of Wisconsin at Madison. And what they did is they went out on Roadway after, from fresh mix all the way up to, 30 months, 60 months, all the way up to, let's say, 10 years and extracted cores. What is a core? You go in and you go to the Roadway and you dig out some material, you bring it back into the lab, you extract the bitumen, and you measure performance. Predictably, there is a fall off in performance as a function of aging. This is what we mean when we say your bitumen becomes more stiff, your bitumen becomes more brittle. There are very many different test techniques to measure that change or property, and I've just highlighted penetration because it's very widely accepted throughout the world. This is a complex slide, so I will take a few moments. I understand some of you may not be familiar with bitumen, what is testing, and how it is expected to perform. This is really a chart that lays out for you what are the regimes of performance expected from bitumen. There is certainly the cold, where you see, over time, thermal cracking. There is certainly a regime of performance fatigue, which is the repeated tires running over the road, the traffic of the road network, etc., etc. There is rutting. This is typically when your wheel drives over typically a soft roadway. It will leave a groove mark. It will leave this rutting mark. It's called rutting. And finally, you expect your bitumen to perform under a production environment. And in each one of these, I've laid out kind of low, intermediate, high temperature, and how it is measured. These are the test techniques by which you measure performance at each regime. So you've got the bending beam rheometer, you've got the differential shear rheometer. The numbers aren't important. I just want to highlight concepts. And each of these techniques will give you parameters that you can measure. And these parameters are used to assess, first, to lay down specification for your roadway, depending on your climate condition, depending on your traffic performance expected from the material, roadway, etc. Each jurisdiction will set different parameters, and so these are specification type parameters. Again, I don't want you to get bogged down with this, other than to understand some simple concepts. From the day it is laid down, your thermal cracking and fatigue cracking, as measured by these parameters, only gets worse. In other words, the ability of the material to resist fatigue cracking, the ability of the material to resist thermal cracking, is best on day one and keeps deteriorating after that. Rutting, on the other hand, as measured by these parameters, is worst on day one. On day one, when you put down your pavement, your mix is a little bit soft. As it becomes more stiff, more brittle over time, the rutting performance keeps on increasing. And RAP, reclaimed asphalt pavement, helps with rutting performance. And we'll go into that in a little bit detail. Finally, here is some parameters that is used to characterize the bitumen needed in a plant environment. You're looking at rotational viscosity. And as you can imagine, if you extract the bitumen from aged RAP, it is stiff, it is brittle, the viscosity is too high to be able to be processed satisfactorily in a plant. So how do you go about incorporating RAP in a mix? Again, very simple scientific principles. You get a representative sample. You check for consistency. You keep homogenizing the piles so as to, as I said, you want to get a consistent material. You characterize the RAP material for both gradation, which is particle size, as well as your bitumen content. What is the bitumen content? How much is there? What is the grade? What is the quality of that bitumen in the RAP, etc.? You add a rejuvenating agency in order to be able to compensate for that stiffness. And so how does that work in real life? In real life, you will have in your mix, let's say you've told yourself you want to investigate high RAP mixes. You will have some stockpile aggregates or stockpile rock. You will have some RAP aggregates. You combine them and you add different percentages of stockpile versus RAP to achieve the gradation requirement that your roadway engineer has specified. Likewise, you combine the RAP binder with some virgin binder and some rejuvenator. You combine the bitumen so as to and grade it or measure the properties so as to meet your performance requirements. Now, and you do 2 or 3 of these kinds of mixes, and now you are ready to select the highest RAP percentage that satisfies both your gradation requirement and your performance requirement. Gradation is important because, as you can all imagine, different particle sizes, when brought together, packed differently. You want good, consistent packing in order to be able to bear the traffic loads. Bitumen or liquid performance is important because you want to put down that roadway and you want it to last for 3, 5, 7 years, whatever is the expected life cycle of that roadway. And now you choose the highest RAP content that satisfies all these requirements. Remember when I told you earlier on that you should break down your RAP into coarse, medium, and fine. That is accepted. Some people just break it down into coarse and fine. Some people just work with one grade. In general, as a rule of thumb, the more the separation into smaller, into more different particle sizes of your RAP, the higher the RAP content you can put in your mix. That's one of the underlying principles, which is why not simply from a material consistency point of view, you want to separate your RAP into different piles based on sizes. You also do that so that you're able to incorporate more and more RAP into your mix. Why do you do that? Because it has an economic impact. In general, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, the more RAP you use in your mix, the cheaper the cost or the price of your mix. So continuing on, you in the previous step, created your mix. How do you test that mix? I'll start off with a general comment that throughout the world, it's recognized that if you use more than, let's say, 20% wrap in your mix, some type of rejuvenator is needed. And so how do you design for a mix that incorporates high wrap? Excuse me. You use what's known as a balanced mix design concept. And, it's a fancy word, but it's really a very simple concept. You look at the stresses that the roadway has to experience over its lifetime. So really, you're looking for a balance between rutting properties and fracture or fatigue toughness properties. Rutting can be measured by Hamburg, by APA, etc. Fracture toughness can be measured by any number of test techniques, overlay, SCB. It's an alphabet soup. That's not important. What's really important is you're looking to balance two contrasting properties in your mix. The stiffer the mix, the more resistant it is to rutting. But the stiffer the mix, the more prone it is to fatigue cracking, more prone it is to failure through thermal cracking. So you want a softer mix, a little bit softer, so that you're able to resist these cracking and fatigue type loads, while at the same time providing adequate rutting properties. And that is the balance that you're seeking to achieve. So let's move on. You've designed some of these things. How do you select a good rejuvenator? And there are any number of them. There's really softer grade bitumens. There's petroleum-based rejuvenators, paraffinic, aromatic, proprietary oils, naphthenic oils. Some people use cooking oil that you make your French fries from, and all of these have been tried. All of these have been tried. Redefined engine oil bottoms, which is when you take your car in for an oil change, that oil that is removed from the car is shipped off to a factory. They re-refine it to produce the engine oil back, and that they sell to you as engine oil. And what's left behind at the bottom is called a redefined engine oil bottom, or REOB. And finally, I'll talk about bio-based oils. In general, the trend throughout the world, they have tried all of these. They've tried softer grade bitumen. Every one of these has some limitations or the other. And we may not have time to go into them, but I'm certainly happy to field questions on that. In general, today, it is accepted pretty much throughout the world that bio-based oils, especially the engineered ones, are probably superior in terms of dosage efficiency, in terms of performance on the roadway as made, as well as over time. And so a large number of these have been tried. I'm certain in Malaysia too that many of them are being used today. And so with that, let's move on. You've tried to look at different rejuvenators. What are some of the ideal features that you're looking for? Environmentally friendly, renewable, does not tax the food resources of the planet. As I mentioned, very efficient at low dosing levels, easy to use, not a hazardous chemistry, no VOC, safe to use. It must help lower the cost of your mix. But most importantly, it must deliver functional performance that you expect out of the roadway, both instantaneously or measured in a lab, or on a roadway over time, 3, 4, 5, 7 years, things like that. So those are some of the factors that you may want to consider when looking at your rejuvenator selection. I put this slide up just to kind of highlight to you, the viewers in Malaysia, that you're not the first guinea pig. We are not bringing over some untested, untrialed type of material to your shores and asking you to be customer number 001. This product, we are one of the leaders in our product. Relicser is one of the leaders in rejuvenators much across the globe. As this chart highlights, we started development in the early part of last decade. We've had sales in North America, in Asia, in Europe and South America, with many more following. We are active throughout the world. So you're not the first people that will be using the technology, by all means, please contact Deepak or me if you need more information. We'd be happy to provide technical support. We are really peerless in our technical support ability to be able to help you understand these concepts, how to help you put these things together. So how does a rejuvenator work? You have this wrap particle. This wrap particle consists of stone, consists of aged bitumen. You're adding a very small amount. We put down a drop here. It's more than just symbolic. It's just how efficient our rejuvenator is. You add some, you're able now, the function of this rejuvenator is to very rapidly penetrate into the wrap particle and rejuvenate or restore the functional performance of that aged bitumen so that you're able to get virgin type properties out of it. That's really the goal. If you used it as a filler, you really don't care. You just go for the particle size gradation and you run with it. However, if you want to be able to derive the full benefits of the wrap, not use it in a low value, low filler type mix application, but actually want to use that bitumen as a functional ingredient to your performance and help lower cost of your mix, then you need to rejuvenate it using a good rejuvenator. So how is this technology really deployed? You have a special blend of bio-based oils. You create your rejuvenator. You have these damaged roads over time. You go in, you excavate them. You create the wrap according to the principles we talked about. You go ahead and you segregate the different particle sizes. You homogenize it. You get a good quality wrap that you're able to create a mix out of. And this mix is fed to your paver head, which then lays down your roadway containing wrap, containing rejuvenator. This is kind of the life cycle, if you will. This is kind of a schematic of how this technology is deployed. So far, we've talked about how to do it, why to do it, etc. What is really the impact on roadway performance? A lot of case studies. We've got over probably 80 slides like this of case studies from around the world. I just highlight a few of them. And I start with this always, this slide, because no matter where you go in the world, everybody can look at this chart and say, I can understand this chart. So if you're in USA, Canada, North America, New Zealand, etc., you will use what's known as a temperature grading of the material. If you are in Australia, if you're in India, if you're in some of the other parts of the world, you use what's known as viscosity grading of the material. And if you're in Europe or if you're in other parts of the world, you use what's known as softening point and penetration grading of the material. So let me just simply explain to you what's happening here. Let's just pick mix 2A. Mix 2A contains 40% reclaimed asphalt pavement. So a mix that contains 40% of wrap with no rejuvenator, and these are the kinds of properties you get out of it. Mix 2B has the same 40%, same wrap, and in this case, we've added about 0.28% by weight of rejuvenator. Right away, you can see some important effects. You can see that the low temperature performance, by the way, this is important because it tells you how resistant your material is to cracking, how resistant your material in some ways also tells you about fatigue damage tolerance. The lower the number, the better. You can see how much of a dramatic impact it makes to the low temperature properties, rejuvenation makes to the low temperature properties of your material. You can see this. Right away, you can see that the viscosity is reduced to about a third. And that makes it much more easy for pavement laydown. You're not dealing with a stiff mix that you have to overheat in order to put down on your pavement. You can see the changes in softening point. There should be an additional chart here, simply ran out of real estate. So penetration numbers are also dramatically changed. What you will also see is that as you step down this table, you're going from 30, 40, 45, 50% wrap. And it's typically, if you look at this column, it tells you how much of your total bitumen content that you're adding to the mix comes from recycled content. In this case, it is 50%. In other words, you are relying on your wrap material to provide about 50% of the total bitumen that is required for that mix. As you step higher and higher, you see higher and higher numbers, all the way up to about, in this case, 85%. So let's just look very briefly at mix 4A and 4B. It has about 85% of your total liquids. In other words, if you're going to add 100 grams of virgin bitumen to a no-wrap mix and you make a mix of this type, you are now only adding 15% of that. The rest of it, you're expecting to come from the wrap. You can see the impact of performance, no Rejuvenator versus Rejuvenator case. Dramatic improvement in low temperature, fatigue tolerance, thermal resistance, etc. Absolutely stupendous effect on viscosity. This is a material at 48,000 centipoise. It cannot be processed. You cannot put it down on a roadway. At 4,800, you're approaching polymer modified bitumen levels, a little bit stiff, but still can be laid down. And you can see the dramatic influence that has on your softening point and your penetration. So I spoke to you about balanced mix design. Let me lay out some more case studies. This is a test case from Midwest USA. It has wrap, it has RAS, and a total binder content, total liquids content of 5.5. Some of it is coming from your wrap, some of it is coming from virgin binder addition. Just to give you an idea how much of Rejuvenator you're adding for 1 ton of such a mix, you're adding about 1 kilogram. And what do you see? These are the control properties, and these are with the Rejuvenator properties. You can see the overlay is the test technique that's used to characterize fracture toughness, fatigue resistance, etc. APA rutting is the test technique used to characterize the rutting resistance. Remember, we spoke about this balanced mix design. You're looking to trade off rutting versus fracture toughness. You can see we're failing the test criteria at this mix without any Rejuvenator. But when you add the Rejuvenator, you're able to get all these properties in balance. And that leads to a good mix. This is a case that the previous several cases were for wear layer or the top 2 inches, top 50 millimeter on which the tires ride. This is what's known as a base course. It is about 6 to 8 inches thick, about 100 to 150 millimeter thick. And these are examples of high wrap mixes used in the base course with and without Rejuvenator. The key goal here is to try and show you that here is the first case is a mix that's made with no wrap at all. It's characterized by a density, it's characterized by a stability, it's characterized by a flow number and an ideal CT index. Again, this is a mix, first line mix made with no wrap at all. Now you're adding 50 and 60% wrap to your mix with some Rejuvenator thrown in, and you can see how you're able to get a roadway performance or a mix performance that is identical to a no wrap case at 50 and 60% wrap. This is very commonly employed in Asia, so I thought I'd put up this slide because base courses using high wrap certainly prevalent in Australia, New Zealand, in many parts of Asia. In Europe and USA, we have now moved to the top course, the wear layer course. Initially, people were more conservative. They did not want to include it in the wear layer course. Today, it's very commonplace to see anywhere from 30, 35 to 50, even 60% wrap mixes in the surface layer. And you can see how well the Rejuvenator works in trying to restore the properties of the bitumen so that it gives you properties that you have come to expect with a no wrap mix, 0% wrap mix. I'll highlight this because the Illinois Tollway in the USA is one of the most heavily trafficked arterial corridor, as the picture will show you. Very heavy traffic, 16 lanes across, and it really bears a lot of traffic. Happy to let you know after an almost 18-month qualification process, we are listed on the Illinois Tollway Authority's website as the only approved rejuvenator. And this lays out just some steps that we took in order to be able to get there. It is, by the way, written about extensively in Asphalt Pro magazine as a test case study of cooperation between a private company like SRIPAK, between the tollway authorities, between a contractor, between testing labs, between university. It was a nice collaboration. It's the kind of work we like to do. It's the kind of thing that we like to encourage. Bring all the parties together. The roadway authority, who's in charge of the roadway, who has to guarantee that life or that performance to the driving public. University, who can test the material exhaustively. Private testing labs, who are providing QC and technical support on the roadway as the roadway is being laid, as well as a contractor who will make the mix and put it down on the roadway. And I won't take too much of your time. Remember, I mentioned to you in your selection criteria for rejuvenators, one grade softer bitumen. The Illinois Tollway asked us to make a mix, compare one grade softer versus just regular grade bitumen with our rejuvenator. Across the board, you can see the properties are superior, are better, meet the specification. They were so happy that they asked us to put down a stretch. By the way, we put down over, as part of our trial, this was maybe 4 or 5 days worth of production, and put down maybe, at least 10, 12 kilometer equivalent of lane kilometers of highway, base course, surface course, overlay mixes, shoulder mixes, etc., etc. They were so happy with the performance. They wanted to see what would happen if we increase slightly the rejuvenator content from 2% to 3.6% of the total liquid. And they wanted to see if these DCT number and the delta TC number were improved, because they wanted to be able to increase their specification so that it becomes more stringent. And we're happy to say, with our high wrap mix, we were able to meet even the more stringent type of specification targets that they had put down. Happy to share the magazine article with you. Please drop us a note. And it lays down a more detailed test case of what exactly happened. I'll step very briefly. So far, you've been seeing examples of 30% reclaimed material, 40%, 50% reclaimed material, etc., etc. This is a case of 100% wrap material. There is no virgin bitumen added, just wrap and rejuvenator. Imagine, if you will, you take a pile of loose wrap in your hand and crush it in your hand. Then you open your fingers. There's obviously nothing holding the wrap together. It falls through your fingers. That explains to you, if your rejuvenator does not work in this mix, then when you crush your finger and remove it, you won't achieve any compaction. It will fall through. So this is perhaps the most stringent case of trial for any rejuvenator. And we're happy to say this is an actual roadway in New York City. High amount of traffic, stopping, standing, turning, extremes of climate. New York is blessed with snow in winter and heat in summer. I don't know if you can use the word blessed, but here we are. Anyway, first we did lab studies. This was compacted using a Marshall to look at the stability and flow numbers, met them. And then they put down several miles of roadway. After about 9 to 10, 12 months, we pulled out some cores, looked at the SCB, semicircular beam bending, which is a fracture toughness parameter, and the Hamburg for the rutting. Remember, we walked through this balanced mix design. You're looking to trade off crack resistance versus rutting. We looked at the performance after a year of performance, and we were comfortably exceeding the specification for virgin material. This is a case of, and the roadways exist even today. You're welcome to come to New York, take a look. Outstanding mix properties in 100% wrap. And the point I want to make here is, and I'll emphasize this a little bit later, is just because you're adding more and more wrap to your mix, it doesn't mean you're compromising the performance. That is what a good rejuvenator will do for you. It will be able to help deliver properties of the roadway that compare well with no wrap or low wrap mixes. Also used a lot in pothole patching mixes. And this is, I'll just let the video play while I talk about it. This is in Bombay, New York, just along the USA-Canada border, extremes of climate, very cold in winter, bitterly cold in winter, and quite warm in summer with a lot of rain, etc. So 100% wrap thrown into a Falcon hot box. By the way, this is a mobile piece of equipment that's wheeled over to the job site. You add about maybe 0.9% of Rejuvenator to it. You take about, roll it to the job site. You put the mix into the pothole, and then you roll it over, and it's opened up to traffic immediately. So it's also used not just in case of hot mixes made in plants, but also for pothole filling and shoulder repair and things like that. Rejuvenation with 100% wrap is a very viable technology to provide relief when you have emergency roadway repairs. So far, we've talked about performance as immediately made in a lab. I want to take you one step further. And what we're doing here, again, a busy chart. I'll try to explain it in as many few words as possible. What we're measuring is CT index, fracture toughness or crack resistance, fatigue resistance of a product made with case 1, no wrap, and about 5.5% of virgin bitumen. These are the properties after 4-hour oven aging, after 8-hour oven aging, and after 16-hour oven aging. Predictably, as you can imagine, the properties of the mix fall as you age it more and more. The fracture toughness falls more and more as you age it. We took this chart and just put it out here and compared it to 2 mixes, one with 30% wrap and one with 50% wrap. In case 1, we added 5%. Remember, I highlighted to you among the different Rejuvenator classes, one of the Rejuvenator classes that I highlighted was petro oil. It could be naphthenic, it could be a Reob type material, it could be aromatic, it could be any of the proprietary oils. We have extensive data on all of this. This kind of performance is very emblematic of those kinds of materials. So you add about 5% petro oil as a rejuvenator to your wrap mix. And in another case, we studied 3% of our rejuvenator, and we looked at the same 4-hour, 8-hour, and 16-hour aging. And what you can see in the case of the petro oils is instantaneous value is high, but after long-term aging, the performance falls off drastically. And this is true in both 30% and 50% wrap mixes. And you can see that with our rejuvenator, you're able to maintain or better the aged performance of the roadway. And that is a key highlight that I want to re-emphasize to you. It's not only important that you get 2 or 3 key points. It's not only important that you get the properties of the mix today as made in your lab or as put down in the field, but over course of time, you want to achieve properties that are equivalent to no wrap mixes. And that is what a good rejuvenation technology will allow you to do, which is make you impervious to whether you're using wrap in your mix or not. You should be able to generate performance out of it, both instantaneous and long-term, that is comparable to no wrap mixes. I explained a lot about the properties. Let me just take a moment and explain why you see these properties. This chart just looks at, excuse me, low temperature performance of various bitumen mixes, not bitumen, to which we've added various oils. And what we did here is, and this goes back to about 2010, 2011, something like that. We were experimenting with different rejuvenating agents. We were looking to try and design a good rejuvenator. And what we saw was we were getting different results until we decided in our lab to create artificial wrap, which means we synthetically aged our virgin binder, our virgin bitumen in a lab oven to produce wrap binder. Now we have a highly consistent material to which we add 5% of maybe 30 or 40 different oils. We tried so many of them. And we still continue to do research to be able to A, competitive benchmark, and B, develop more and more better rejuvenators. So we added about 5% of this to this binder, aged binder, and we looked at the low temperature properties. And right away, if low temperature property, as I mentioned to you, is a good proxy for performance out in the field, right away you can see oil B gives the most dosage efficient. For 5%, it's able to give you the best low temperature performance until we did one more step. Remember, I told you we created artificial binder that show that was similar to, let's say, 3 to 5 year, 7-year Roadway extracted materials. We took all of these materials and subjected it to one more aging cycle to try and see, okay, you make a Roadway with petro oil A or bio oil 2 or oil B or oil C. What does the long-term performance look like? And so right away you can see that this material, which was the most efficient on day one, shows very dramatic changes upon aging. And that was the whole driving force behind our Rejuvenator development. Not only did we want a high level of performance, but we also wanted to minimize the change upon aging. As I mentioned to you, our goal is to provide a Rejuvenator that not only satisfies your requirements today, but is stable over time, gives you performance of Roadway, and makes the whole mix, makes the whole pavement impervious to the fact that whether you've added high wrap, low wrap, no wrap, it really doesn't make a difference. That is our goal. So now let me step up and share with you some of the cost implications of what you're doing. What we're comparing here is a control mix with a very low amount of wrap, about 15%, and no Rejuvenator. And it's compared to a high wrap mix with about 40% wrap and maybe 3.8% by weight of binder and about 0.1% by weight of Rejuvenator. If you look at the cost index, if this is a cost index of 1, if the cost of making this mix, the control mix, is, let's say, 100 ringgit, the cost of making this mix is about 10 to 12% lower. So not only are you able to get good properties out of this Rejuvenator, not only is this Rejuvenator able to provide those continuing good properties over a long period of time, you're also able to reduce the cost of the mix. And you do this because you force more and more of the aged bitumen in the wrap to contribute meaningfully as a virgin bitumen. And that's the other real driver for this. So let's move to the next phase of this. You've done the lab work. You've looked at the material in the lab. You've run some tests. You've run some mixes. You've aged it. Now the plant engineer in you or the plant manager in you says, how do I use this in a plant? Some very common tips before we walk into this, and it really is a user-friendly material. But let's educate a little bit on what you need to do in order to be able to prepare for production. As we mentioned before, the consistency of your wrap pile has to be good. You have to turn it over once or twice. You want to minimize the dust in your wrap. You want to be providing some kind of wrap preheating, because now remember, into your mix, 40% of this material, let's say you go for a 40% wrap mix, 40% of your mix is wrap. If you feed it cold into your bin, it will act as a heat sink. So some amount of wrap preheating is needed. And that's needed not only to prevent a heat sink kind of a situation, but also to eliminate moisture. In general, if it's a wet, rainy day and your wrap pile has gotten a little wet, you will be able to only use lesser percentage of wrap. For example, let's say routinely you're running 30 or 40% wrap. Let's say 40% wrap in your mix day in, day out. It's rained a little bit. If you have not tarped over your wrap pile and it gets a little wet, then the next day when you come in, you can't do 40% wrap, because that moisture again will interfere with the heat transfer, will interfere with properties. So instead of 40%, you may be forced to only operate at 25 or 30%. So it is important to keep track of the moisture content, to keep it as dry as possible. And then we spoke about this: analyze the wrap, treat it with the same care and reverence that you're getting with any incoming material into your plant. The next couple of charts, again, different people around the world have different plant operations. This is a very routine drum operation, a continuous drum. You can treat, where do you incorporate this rejuvenator in your mix? You can add it to your conveyor belt that's feeding the wrap into the drum. You can add it to your, if all you're making is 40% wrap all day long, you can simply add it to your bitumen tank, mix it in with the bitumen tank, and that could be introduced into your drum. Or you can co-inject it inline using an inline blender, using an inline pump. You can feed it in along with the virgin bitumen as it's being fed into the tank. So really a very friendly, versatile material, low viscosity. And I'm an old plant manager, so I always like to take a moment or two to emphasize the environmental health and safety aspects. To me, it's critical because, as I said, I'm an old plant manager. Our product is no odor, low VOC, safe to handle, very high flash point. It will not set fire to your plant. Low GHG, low carbon footprint. No special PPE is required. It's non-hazardous to transport, and very, very stable at mixed temperatures, use temperatures, storage temperatures. As I said, physically, if you imagine, the product has a consistency of standard cooking oil that you use in your home. It looks and feels like it. So at room temperature, ambient conditions, let's say some 25, 30 degrees C, it probably has a consistency between that of water and honey, just like cooking oil. Many parts around the world have batch plants, not continuous drum operators. Our product has been successfully used in batch plants as well. Again, depending on the situation, how much wrap you're adding to the mix, we're able to give you some options on how to be able to feed your material, how to be able to optimize your mix, how to be able to really utilize the material well. So we do provide exhaustive technical support, not merely in the testing, the design, the verification, but also in your plant environment, how to do it in different types of plant environment. Batch plants are more common in Australia, in Asia, etc. Continuous drum operations are more common in Europe and North America. So with that, let me walk you through some of the closing remarks. Let me start by saying thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you for inviting Deepak and me into your offices, into your homes, and into your plant environments. I want to emphasize a few things just to leave you with a few quick ideas. High wrap mixes are becoming the norm. They're not simply a design or an experimental or a boutique type fixture. Anywhere from 25 to 50% mixes around the world are becoming far more common, and it is possible to engineer performance of these high wrap mixes using the correct rejuvenator to be able to have similar to virgin mixes with no wrap at all. They are highly economical. They help you with cost reduction on your mixes. And as I mentioned, wrap is not junk. Wrap is a very valuable raw material input into your process. Correct binder dosage is important. Correct rejuvenation, picking the right rejuvenation, adjusting the dosage, adjusting the mix, feeding it just correctly in your plant. They are all important. And as I highlighted to you, there are very many differences in properties between many of the different rejuvenators available. So please feel free to reach out to us if you need any guidance, any support, any help. We're here to another quick technical resource. If you need more information, need more education, we have a very robust website. If you need simply on, safety data sheet, technical data sheets, product brochures, videos, testimonials, articles and blogs, etc. That's available. We also have a lot of seminars, webinars, and infographics available on not just rejuvenation, but polymers and a whole bunch of different things. Please do reach out to us. Please go check out the website with any questions or comments, etc., or if you simply want to learn more about our products. A quick disclaimer, my legal department absolutely insists we flash this. And with that, thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much for, as I said, for inviting us in. And Dr. Shobana, I am happy to answer as many or as few questions that do come up.
Thank you, Dr. Krishna. That was a really, really informative session. I think, personally for me, I'm a concrete person, so I haven't really dealt a lot with bitumen. So it's very interesting to hear. And we already have quite a number of questions lined up from the Facebook comments. So we'll start covering them. And if anyone has any other questions, do post it up on the comment section of the Facebook Live video, and I'll pick them up for Dr. Krishna to answer. So the first one we have is from Louis Song, who is asking whether wrap aggregates can be incorporated into concrete mix designs.
Good question. Actually, concrete dust is used in bitumen roadways, and wrap dust and wrap aggregates may be used in concrete roadways. But when you do things like this, you are simply using the material as a cheap filler. You're wasting some of the valuable bitumen. By the way, bitumen today across the world is probably averaging around $500 US dollars per ton around the world, average. Your number may be slightly higher or lower, but that is a very valuable and cost-wise is a very important material that you could perhaps use in more productively. That was a thrust of what I was trying to lay out. Don't use it simply as a filler material, but employ some of the newer technologies in order to be able to utilize the full value, the full benefit of that material.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. And we have another question from Katir, who asks whether the percentage of wrap in the mix is limited by the age of the wrap.
Wonderful question. Wonderful question. The short answer is no, but you have hit on a very key point. I remember I emphasized in the talk earlier, when you characterize the wrap, extract the bitumen and grade the bitumen or measure the bitumen age, properties, etc. in the wrap. In a properly and really you can adjust by adding the correct amount of rejuvenator, by adding firstly the correct rejuvenator and the correct amount of rejuvenator and the correct amount of virgin bitumen. You can get back the properties that you had of a mix that had no wrap at all. So the correct answer to your question is there is no limitation on wrap content based on age. And two, you have to be careful, you have to test, and you have to select the right rejuvenator, the right dosage, the right virgin bitumen loading, etc., in order to be able to get the properties that you need. But there is no limit. Excellent question. There is no real limit.
Great. The next question we have is from Sachin, who says some transport agencies only allow wrap to be used in the base course. What is the issue with using wrap in the surface wear layer?
Very good question, Sachin. I think in much of Asia is probably 2 or 3 years behind USA or Europe in this case. In the beginning, in USA too, they were using it, rejuvenation and high wrap in base courses early on. They simply wanted to control entry point of the material of a new technology. Today, it is very widely used on wear layer courses in much of Europe, in much of South Africa, in much of North and South America. So I suspect it's only a matter of time before it finds its applications in Asia on the surface layer. It is not, it really is only a question of adjusting the right properties. The properties of the surface layer are slightly different, required from a surface layer are slightly different from those required in the base course. And so if you adjust for those properties, there should be no limitation to using wrap in high wrap with rejuvenation in either surface layer or in base course.
Okay, great. Sachin also asked another question, so we'll cover that first before we move on to the next one. He's asked if instead of using a rejuvenator, whether it's possible to just use a soft bitumen binder.
Again, another excellent question. I think again this is there's a little bit of history here. In the beginning, in a very long time ago, maybe 2010, 11, 12, it was common to start using softer grades of bitumen in conjunction with high wrap mixes. By then, high wrap was about 20-25%. First point I will make is that if you consider a high wrap mix like say 60, 70, 80, even 100%, softer binders will not work. There simply isn't enough soft binder that you can add to adjust the properties of really high wrap mixes. Second, dosage efficiency of these softer binders is not nearly as good, and this has a direct bearing on economics. As I mentioned to you, as I mentioned during the talk, for something like a 50% ABR mix, you use maybe 1 kilogram of our rejuvenator. It's simply not possible with softer bitumens. But the most important thing that people have come to realize, and we have some data on this, I'm happy to share it with your members anytime, Dr. Shobana. Space limitations permitted only to bring a few slides to the deck, but we have exhaustive data on softer grade bitumens, on petrochemical type rejuvenators. And the universal answer seems to be that their aging properties are not nearly as good as some of these rejuvenators. Remember, I said our rejuvenator is a blend of bio oils. That's only half the truth. We also add, proprietary agents in it in order to be able to diffuse very rapidly into the wrap particle and be able to really functionally rejuvenate it in a very short period of time. We also add some proprietary agents to Relicser that allow for long-term stability, long-term aging, some stabilizers, if you will. So some of these engineered materials really have a performance that is a notch above the petrochemical oils, the soft grade bitumens, etc., etc.
Okay, great. That's really interesting to know, and also thank you for being so kind as to offer to share the data that you have as well. So I guess if anyone does want to follow up on that, then feel free to reach out to ACI Malaysia chapter, and we can get the materials from Dr. Krishna for you. Now we have a question from Angela, who asks whether it's possible to just spray the rejuvenator directly on a pile of reclaimed asphalt and let it soak a day or two.
Another excellent question. Earlier on, and this is really excellent question. Earlier on, there were several different ideas, and we're talking about, again, maybe 2013, 14, 15. There were several different ideas on how to incorporate a rejuvenator into a wrap mix. And one of the ideas was, why not spray? The rejuvenator is supposed to work on the bitumen in wrap. Why not just spray it on the wrap and then use it. And that way you get the maximum benefit, the maximum dosage efficiency, etc., etc. And it turns out it's a good idea in theory, but not so good idea in practice. And here's the reason why. Remember, when you spray your Rejuvenator on a wrap pile, you're softening that binder. It's penetrating into that aged wrap bitumen. It's softening it. It's rejuvenating it. And now, remember also that you're adding 40% of this into your mix, so you got to heat it. So by the time you have taken such a treated wrap pile, heated it, and tried to convey it in the plant environment, it turns out not to be an easy matter. It clogs up, it sticks together, agglomerates, sticks to the conveyor belt, etc., etc. So that's the other reason why we looked at studies. We looked at exhaustively at several different studies, and we came up with a diffusivity aid package in Relicser that allows for very rapid penetration. And we have studies that show that if after making your mix you lead it typically to a storage silo, or you lead it directly to a truck, if the residence time in there is anything greater than 20 minutes, then you're good. The diffusivity that it rejuvenates the mix. Even when you add it to the virgin binder and you introduce it like that, it gives you a fully functional mix within about 20 minutes. And so that is more than enough for even the fastest operations around the world. And so it really is not, from a practical standpoint, it's not advisable to add it to a wrap mix. The only exception to this, and I will state this clearly, is 100% wrap. And there are about 2 plants in the world that I know that do 100% wrap, and it is a challenging operation. It sounds very simple in theory. You take some wrap, you add some Rejuvenator to it, you make a mix, and you test the properties. But in a plant environment, there's a lot of subtleties. Yes, it can be sprayed. The short answer to your question, Angela, yes, it can be sprayed onto the wrap as it's being conveyed. That is a daunting and challenging. It is really a quantum jump in technology. And you really don't need to do it for 30, 40, 50, 60% wrap mixes. You can dose your bitumen and allow that to carry the Rejuvenator into the mix.
Okay. And Angela also had another question that I missed earlier. So she asked, are effective rejuvenators available commercially, and are they used widely?
I'm sorry, can you repeat, please?
Are effective rejuvenators available commercially, and are they used widely?
Yes, it depends on the country. They are used widely in some places, and as we travel around the globe, in some places they're used widely. In some places we have to educate a lot of people, but it takes. But the adoption rate has been good, and our Rejuvenator has been available commercially since about 2015. As I indicated to your members, we are not trying some new untested technology on the poor people of poor engineers of Malaysia. This is proven technology. This is deployed around the world. There are many, if you visit our website, there are many test cases of where it's being used, customer testimonials, etc., etc. So yes, please please check out our website and take a look and contact us with any questions, technical, commercial, anything at all.
Okay, great. So we have another question from Akash, who asks, how can a mixing plant engineer calculate the correct amount of Rejuvenator to use in a mix?
Very good question. Very good question. I think the answer to that depends on the specifications that's used in Malaysia, Akash. What I would recommend is you probably get in touch with us. This is an area that we are able to provide substantial technical guidance in. Depending on your specification and depending on your bitumen content of the wrap, on the bitumen age of the wrap, etc., we can at least get you started with what's known as blending curves. So this is, if you can imagine, it's just a calibration curve that says, based on your materials, based on your specifications, here's a kind of a rough calibration curve, how much percent of what to add, how much virgin bitumen to add, etc., etc. We can provide some technical guidance to you based on your specifications in Malaysia.
Okay. And he also asked, when would the ideal rejuvenator be available in Malaysia? What is the name of this product and who makes it?
Our product is called Relicser. Thank you, Akash. Be happy to talk to you. It is our we have an Asia Pacific subsidiary that services Singapore, Indonesia, Malaysia, etc. We have customer service and technical service available 24/7 from either Australia or India or China. So we have a number of affiliates around the world, and it is available since 2015. Please contact us, check out our website, contact us for more details.
Okay, great. I'm going to just quickly flash the thank you screen again so that Akash can get the details that you shared. So it's www.sripath.com, and then you can find out more there. Another question from Ranjit, who asks, what is the shelf life of your rejuvenator?
The published shelf life is 1 year. Again, it depends on storage conditions. Could last substantially much more than that. Usually in a regular plant environment, this is not an issue. Some of our customers have held over the Rejuvenator. In USA, it's not uncommon, or even in Europe, it's not uncommon to suspend paving operations around October, November, when it gets too cold or when there's snow on the ground. It's not uncommon to suspend it and pick it back up in March or April. And we have had customers who have stored the material in storage tanks over the course of that period of time and come back and start it up in March or April without a problem. So published shelf life is 1 year, but in many cases, it lasts longer than that.
Okay, and you mentioned that these rejuvenators are plant-based, right? So they're made from plant oil.
Correct. They're all plant-based bio-oil blends. So yes, quite user-friendly. And I want to emphasize, we do not burden food resources around the world.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's really good to know. One final question from Angela, who asks, will a rejuvenator work on recycled crushed concrete?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Will a rejuvenator work on recycled crushed concrete?
The answer is no. There is no bitumen content in crushed concrete to be able to function the way reclaimed asphalt pavement does. Remember, the goal here is to be able to take this old roadway and reuse it as a fresh roadway component while utilizing the bitumen content. So in crushed concrete, if there is no bitumen content, it typically will not have benefit from rejuvenator use.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Martin has quite an interesting question that's very relevant to the Malaysian scene. He's asked, can we use palm oil to make rejuvenator?
Very good question. Martin, I will share with you some proprietary information. What we have found is no one oil works best. In other words, it has to be a blend. We have certainly experimented with palm oils. In general, palm oil has a low unsaturation content. And you need that higher degree of saturation content in order to be able to effectively compatibilize with the bitumen. And so in small minor doses, yes, but just by itself, we certainly have data. Just by itself, it does not seem to work not very well. The short answer is just palm oil, not very well.
Okay. What are the main oils that you do use actually?
It's a little bit proprietary. We use a variety of bio oils, and that's really all I can say about it, Shobana.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, so I think we'll just give the viewers another minute to see if anyone has any final questions before we wrap things up. So if anyone has anything that they would really like to ask right now, do put it up and I'll share it with Dr. Krishna to answer. And otherwise, if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to ACI Malaysia chapter, and we can always, put you in touch with Dr. Krishna, or you can visit his website as he shared earlier, and also contact him directly there. Okay, so it looks like we don't have any questions. We've gone through quite an impressive series of questions. I think this is one of the highest number of questions for a webinar that we've had to date. So thank you for answering all of them, Dr. Krishna, and thank you again for taking the time from all the way in the US East Coast to actually share more about your bitumen rejuvenator with the Malaysian audience. I think a lot of people found it really interesting, which is evidenced by the number of questions asked. And yeah, we look forward to maybe having you on board again in the future for more webinars.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Shobana. Thank you so much for your hospitality and giving us a chance to reach the Malaysian ACI chapter. Really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. Okay, so we will end the broadcast now and leave the